können. Wir sind dann bald.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes with the video, so let's be back in a couple of seconds.
To life.
The global community working in the field of disability and development.
I think this room, more than any room, understands the demographics of disability. It's big.
To make the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities a reality in every region of every nation on the globe.
You make the most huge conference feel special and being part of a family.
We have a great conference ahead of us.
We want to make sure that we create a future that is accessible to everyone.
Zero barriers must be the ultimate goal.
It's not about having special needs. It's about having equal human rights.
And it makes me getting up fighting for my daughter every day of my life so easy when I am inspired by all of you.
Eine Zukunft.
A future for all, a future without barriers all over the world, and also in Austria. A very good morning and a warm welcome to this kickoff event, the Zero Project Conference 2022. I'm delighted to see you all here in person after so many months and years where this has not been possible. Last year, we had a virtual event, and in 2020, when the world was still normal, we did have an event. So we are happy that we'll be able to maintain this tradition and to welcome you here in the Austrian Parliament building and showcase innovation that makes the world zero barriers, accessible to everyone, for a platform of debate for people who can live their creativity. Now, in recent years, we've shown that many new networks have formed and that projects have been included in the work of the Austrian Parliament so that people with disabilities can better participate in what we are doing. Today, we want to trigger a debate and promote a discussion and exchange between policymakers and representatives of this barrier-free world. I'm delighted to welcome so many special people here today. In particular, I'd like to welcome the President of the Austrian National Council and host of today's meeting, Mr. Wolfgang Sobotka. Good morning. Thank you for hosting this meeting and a very warm welcome. I'd also like to welcome the Federal Minister, the former Federal Minister and President of the Austrian Paralympic Committee, Maria Rauch-Kallert. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the co-host of today's meeting amongst us, the founder of the Essl Foundation and the Zero Project Initiative, Mr. Martin Essl. And without a keynote speaker, events such as this one would not be successful, and we are absolutely delighted that Professor Thomas Shakespeare has accepted our invitation to deliver today's keynote presentation. A warm welcome to you, sir, as well. The goal being integration and cooperation across party political borders, we are delighted that all 5 political parties represented in the Austrian National Parliament are involved and present here today. I welcome the members of Parliament working in this field, representing the needs and requirements of people with disabilities. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome the 3rd President. I'd like to present his apologies. Unfortunately, he fell ill at short notice. Mr. Norbert Hofer, he had selected a project for presentation in which he is deeply involved. I'd like to present his excuses. And also, Mrs. Fiona Fielder, Member of Parliament, is not amongst us here today for health reasons, but she has sent us a video message. And I think we can all send her our best wishes for a speedy recovery. We have Kira Grünberg, Member of Parliament, Verena Nussbaum, Socialist Party, and Heike Grebien, Green Party, being represented here today as members of Parliament. If you wonder who is here today on the government bench, so it's a high-carat panel of ladies and gentlemen, people working in the particular sphere, representing the interests of disabled persons. And on behalf of them, I'd like to welcome the President of the Austrian Council of People with Disabilities, Mr. Michael Svoboda. I also would like to welcome the Ombudsperson, Hans-Jörg Hofer. He'll log on to the meeting later on. And the Director of Parliament, Dr. Harald Dossi, who will end our meeting formally. I'd like to bid a warm welcome also to all presenters of innovations who are at today's focus. You will see these are impressive projects that are taking the issue of innovation further. They will be logging on through our video conference, and I'd like to welcome them already now most cordially. So many people want to contribute to our cause, and this is why I'd like to welcome all members of Parliament, all members of the 2nd Chamber of Parliament, representatives of lobbies and interest representations, and the audience here on site, as well as you, ladies and gentlemen, who are listening in via the live stream. A warm welcome to every one of you, and a very good morning to you. So much from my side to start, and we look forward to the introductory words by the President of the Austrian Parliament, Mr. Wolfgang Sobotka. You have the floor, sir. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, who are present here today in the plenary hall of the Austrian Parliament, I'm delighted to see you all in person. I'd also like to welcome those who are listening in via their TV screens or computer screens at their office. And I'm delighted that after 2 years, we are now able to meet again in person. The world has changed significantly. And very right now, we are facing dramatic hours in Europe. If we take all that into consideration and the impending war that might cause harm and suffering, and that might also give rise to disabilities, I think we become all the more aware what our task is. I'd like to thank you, Martin Essl, in particular, for your readiness to cooperate in this project, in the 022 project, and to host this event together with the Austrian Parliament. I am delighted that so many members of Parliament actually are contributing here to present those projects together with the innovators. This is the first time this is happening this way, and we will next year perhaps also invite representatives of business and industry to support us. It was only recently that we have been involved in a project, AFB. We were able to inspect the project, and we saw how excellent the work was and how important it is to live inclusion as comprehensively as possible. If we want to be a business location that is successful, we need to involve and integrate everybody with their different skills and abilities. The fact that this meeting is opened here in the Austrian Parliament building makes us proud. We, as Austrian Parliament, feel committed to promote this issue of zero barriers in a comprehensive manner. And this is why I'm delighted to see so many representatives of the disabled lobby here today who provide advice to us and who also challenge us. I think it's very important that we are challenged to actually take one step after the other. I am delighted, and I hope that next year I will be able to welcome you back in our traditional building, where we'll be able to move to a renovated building where we've got a lot of advice and consultancy to make it barrier-free. And we see that now, as we are starting to take it into operation, this is falling on fruitful ground. I don't have to tell you how important inclusion is. I don't have to tell you that 15% of everybody in Austria has some sort of disability and is challenged to live an independent, self-determined life. I don't have to tell you how things like that can come as a surprise and an unexpected surprise. According to German surveys, 17% of people are suffering from a disability, and that they actually were caught by this as a surprise, and this constituted an additional challenge. We owe them respect, and our work must be one that designs their conditions of life in a way that everybody can participate in a most comprehensive manner. We know that this is not always the case. We also know that people don't have a feeling for that. And here is a task for the Austrian Parliament, all of the 186 members of Parliament and the second chamber, to actually work towards that goal, to raise awareness. It is our task to change awareness within society along those lines. The Austrian Parliament actually has subscribed to promoting social change regardless of party political influence, regardless of political affiliation, and inclusion is one of them. A lot of pioneering work was done in the field, and many have made a contribution in the past. I'd like to thank our management of Parliament, the staff members who are trained in how to handle such situations, how to develop an attitude, how can inclusion be actually translated into everyday life, and also made a principle of work and a principle of living. I think for a developed society, that is quite a normal thing. And if it's no longer an issue, if it is a matter of fact, if it's something we can take for granted, if it's something that is lived across all walks of life, we can be satisfied. Today, it is encouragement to become even better. Inclusion in education would be the first step. Inclusion at the place of work, where work is to create and give meaning to people and orientation, or when it comes to recreational activities. All three areas is something we focus on. I look forward to hearing about the various innovations we're going to be presented here today. I remember earlier conferences and what we saw in terms of technical innovation, what we saw in terms of personal development, leading by example, is something that has taken ground and has been established. Many things have been taken over, also in the work of the Austrian Parliament. And I do hope that one of the other innovation presented today is something that is here to stay, something that gives us food for thought, and something that can be translated into practice. I'm delighted to have Mr. Shakespeare here today. I've had the honor and pleasure to meeting him twice as a keynote speaker.
To come in presence, not only with the TV. Many thanks for your coming.
And I think this conference should also become a most personal experience. This is something I would wish and hope for, that we all team up to work towards the issue, to make our contribution, and to delight in having this exchange. So along these lines, I'd like to wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. President. We are delighted to hear that democratic processes will be even more focusing on participation, and that the Austrian Parliament is taking up those issues, and that next year we'll be seeing what has come of it. That inclusion in society will take an even stronger voice with the help of technology and digitization. Thank you very much for your words of welcome. And we now look forward to a word of welcome by the founder and co-host, Martin Essl. Martin, you have the floor. Mr. President of the Austrian National Council, Wolfgang Sobotka, former Minister and President of the Paralympics Committee, Dr. Rauch Kallert, members of Parliament, dear Professor Tom Shakespeare,
much for joining us and supporting us in this marvelous event at the Houses of the Parliament. Thank you so much. Sehr geehrte
representatives of civil society and of the public sector, of business and industry, representatives of innovators who are present here today in the plenary hall of the Austrian Parliament and also watching us through the live stream. A very warm welcome. It's always a special moment for me when I stand here in the large Redouten Hall of Austrian Parliament to join you to speak up for a most important cause, inclusion in society. That is something that is so important. And today we have brought with us incredible innovations. We are going to showcase here in Parliament throughout the week, and also in the Zero Project Conference at the UN City United Nations Center in Vienna. For those of you who cannot see me, let me briefly describe myself. My name is Martin Essl. I am the founder of the Essl Foundation and the initiator of the Zero Project. I'm in my late 50s. I wear glasses, a black suit to honor the occasion, and a green tie, a white shirt, and a tie, a bow tie with our logo. And I am absolutely delighted that you are joining us, listening in, and that today we'll be experiencing new things. As Mr. Sobotka rightly stated, it's a very special day today. This is the third time we will be talking to you And this is the first time that all political parties represented in the Austrian Parliament will have selected one innovation for presentation to make a significant contribution for that innovation to actually be practically implemented in Austria. And therefore, this issue of accessibility is highlighted and taken forward. A very big thank you to your commitment already now in selecting the projects and then also in their joint implementation. Each year, we are looking for highly innovative approaches. And we've developed a system here in Austria which is based on the following. Together with the community all over the world, we are looking for such innovations. And then, after we've searched for those innovations, some 500 to 700 nominations come in from many different countries, more than 100 countries per year, on a given subject. We will be addressing to prepare the Zero Project Conference. And then we have a 3-stage selection process involving some 1,000 experts and organizations in their various fields to select the most innovative, the most effective, and those that are practicable, that lend themselves to practical implementation. They will be selected. And we, from Zero Project, we have a team of 12 staff members. And everything we do is to organize all that, not more and not less. But I can tell you it's a lot of work, but it's work that is very rewarding. So we are innovators, and we not really the innovators, we are the enablers who communicate those innovations. And this often happens. Many innovations are not even known in their own countries. That is something we find quite often. And by disseminating those innovations, disseminating the information, and ensuring the linking up between those various different innovators, which is going to happen at the Vienna International Center, the UN Center in Vienna, with the support of many others and contributors, are we able step by step to overcome barriers. And the target we have set ourselves with Essl Foundation and Zero Project is that we create a world with zero barriers, a world for all, as Andreas Onea, our moderator, has just told us a couple of minutes ago. So we are grateful that we are able to be here today. And Mr. President, I'd like to thank you most cordially for the invitation for next year already. Next year, we are planning to address the issue of independent living and political participation. And to that, we're going to add technical innovations and one of my favorite or pet projects, barrier-free art and art mediation. For this year, regarding the conference that is going to start tomorrow, we have the subject of accessibility as our overriding subject. And we are grateful that 76 innovators from 35 countries will be participating either live or in our hybrid format through the screen to provide them with a global platform to motivate them to link up with many others to make a change in this world. Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to our moderator. Thank you very much, Martin. And thank you for this important work you and your team are doing. Recent years have shown that is something that is working well, and we'll be seeing so many examples how inclusion is taken forward through the networking, through the exchange, through the dialogue. We are delighted now to move on to our keynote speaker, a fighter for our issues, the rights of persons with disabilities, an international icon, a legend, an expert in the fight against or for rights of people with disabilities, professor for research at the medical faculty of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and chairman of the board of Light for the World International. And he is promoting inclusion globally for people to actually be able to live their rights. A very warm welcome, Professor Tom Shakespeare. Exclusion and accessibility, why are they the challenges of the 21st century? A warm welcome, and you have the floor, sir.
Dear Mr. President, parliamentarians, Zero Project awardees, esteemed guest, Mr. Essel, it is a great pleasure to be here. It's such a pleasure to be in such an accessible place, to have this. I could spend all day up and down. This is fantastic. I can take the ramp and be the president for the morning. It is fantastic. It's always a pleasure to return to Austria, and in particular to Vienna. I love this most civilized of cities, not least because this is the city of music. And back home, I work and spend a lot of time listening to our classical music station. And what am I listening to? To Haydn, to Beethoven, to Mozart, to Schubert. And it's a pleasure to come where all of them worked and made such beautiful music. I'm very proud also, as I've been introduced, to be the chair of Light for the World International, which is such a wonderful Austrian success story. This is where it started. And this is where we must say thank you to the people of Austria for valiantly, steadfastly supporting Light for the World for so many years, and we wish for their continuing support in years to come. It's a pleasure to return to the Zero Conference, the week after the Global Disability Summit took place, because Zero Project is a wonderful place to share, as we've heard, the innovations that improve the lives of disabled people. It's another great Austrian development, and we know and we respect this year the theme is accessibility, and how wonderful, as I said, to be in such an accessible place. And we know that accessibility is Article 9 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2006. A long time ago, but we have made progress. So we need to enable, in the words of the Convention, persons with disabilities to live independently and to participate fully in all aspects of life. And year by year, the Zero Conference is going through those different aspects of life. So thank you for your invitation to me to talk briefly about how disability inclusion is the challenge, in my view, of the 21st century. The theme of our work at Light for the World is inclusion. We promote access to highest quality eye care. We promote inclusion in education and employment. It's not enough just to bring medical fixes, if you like. We need to make social fixes. We need to fix societies which need to do better. If all people are able to access good health, good education, good employment, we are moving a long way towards inclusion. And in order to access those rights, we need more inclusion in transport, in housing, in independent living, and so forth. So it's obvious, we're all challenged to be inclusive in 2022. But I think more than that, many of the challenges of our century, such as the virtual challenge, it's so wonderful that this is being live streamed, that the Zero Project Conference is being live streamed so people can access it. These are opportunities for people with disabilities to leapfrog to a better world. We have had 2 years which have been very, very harmful to people with disabilities, to older people, to minorities. So I do not think in any way we can be pleased at what has happened in the last 2 years, except for one thing, that the virtual has come on by immense leaps. We can shop, we can teach, we can debate, we can learn, we can consume culture. I can listen to the Musikverein online, which is, and disabled people have been saying we need this all along. And now suddenly you have it. And disabled people are saying, keep it. We need this. We can overcome barriers. We can be part, we can be equal with you. So let's think of the future. Let's think of employment. And it used to be that organizations like Light for the World trained disabled people to be cobblers, to be tailors, these 19th century technologies. But now we should be training our people, our disabled people, in internet security, in online commerce, because that enables persons with disabilities in Kenya, in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in Burkina, to be in huge demand as the workers and entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And we have seen this work, and Susan Scott Parker will talk about this. It's very exciting. So if the digital is one challenge that we all face, disabled and non-disabled, another is the climate emergency. We obviously need to travel less, heat better, reduce our carbon footprint. We need to innovate, literally to innovate to survive as a species. And what is interesting to me about disability is that it has always been at the forefront of innovation. When I was young, I remember my grandfather, who was also a parliamentarian in the United Kingdom, having talking books. And they came in a special parcel, and he listened to Jane Austen, and then back in the parcel. And this is very uncommon, because he could not read. He was going blind in his old age. Now, on the flight on the way here, I had my Kindle. And I was not the only person. Everybody was reading an e-book, an e-magazine. So the innovations that were first for disabled people are then adopted for everybody. Back home, I have a power unit for my wheelchair, and I used to be king of the road and zoom along. Nobody else could catch me. Now, vroom, vroom, vroom. Electric scooters. Oh, that's interesting technology. Where did that technology come from? It came from us. It's our technology, which you have adopted, and now it's much cheaper, which is good. But the battery developments that we developed for our wheelchairs are now in general use for everyone, which is brilliant. It's what we need to survive: electric cars, battery innovation. But remember, we got there first. So whether it's, we could go on all day. There are lots of innovations, I assure you, that started with disabled people. But let's look at the present, not just the future. And forgive me, we are here, I am here in Austria, so let's take bolder and bigger steps towards inclusion here. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that Austria and the United Kingdom has signed, and I would say the same things in the UK, so I hope I'm not being out of place. Article 19, living independently and being included in the community, which requires deinstitutionalization. We must close our institutions. We must have disabled people living independently with whoever they choose in the community now. And the lesson from my country, from the Nordic countries, from many countries of Europe, is that this is possible. It doesn't need to cost so much. It's definitely preferable for disabled people to live with other people, to go to shops, to go to art, to do everything with other people. So community living is possible, it's preferable, but what you need in Austria is more support staff, more home personal assistants, more people able to support disabled people to live independently. Let's talk about education. Light for the World tries to achieve inclusive education, system change to achieve inclusive education in Ethiopia, in South Sudan, Mozambique, Uganda, Burkina Faso. We know that globally, 1/3 of all children out of school are disabled children. That is a major cause of children not even getting an education. But here in Austria, I understand that you still have many special schools. This principle of inclusive education, of children going to the same class as everybody else, needs to be pushed further and faster in Austria, as well as in Burkina, as well as in Ethiopia. Because the evidence, I'm an academic, the evidence is that mainstream schools promote the inclusion of disabled children, and they are also good for non-disabled children. Non-disabled children growing up with disabled people are more inclusive and more respectful. Light for the World also tries to get disabled people into work. We have brilliant projects, particularly in Kenya, because work is the key to a good standard of living in many of the countries where we are active, where there is very little social protection. You can't sign at the labor exchange and get a welfare benefit. There is nothing. But we know back home in Austria, the labor market is also not welcoming to disabled people. Unemployment of disabled people is going up. If you're going to get a job, it's in a sheltered workshop, not supported not supported employment in the mainstream. And this is what we want. 15% of the population are disabled people, maybe 10% of all working age people. They can work, they want to work, they should be working. And remember, we live in a virtual economy. Working is with the brain, it doesn't have to be physical manual labor anymore. So I am as chair of Light for the World, I'm very keen to practice what we preach at Light for the World. I want Light for the World to have more disabled employees, and I promise you that by the time I finish, we will have more disabled employees. And I hope that the rest of Austria will listen and will share this vision and this mission. So finally, the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, has words to say about humanitarian aid and development cooperation. Article 11, Article 32. And I know that the Austrian Development Agency, OEZA, is improving inclusion of people with disabilities and promoting accessibility, as well as focusing on disability in several projects, which is a great start. But I want to see more strategic action on disability. I want to see Austria taking the lead as a donor in accessibility, because disabled people are marginalized in so many developing countries, and the voice of Austria and the practice that you preach is really important. Disability should be a mandatory cross-sectional issue in all of Austrian development and cooperation activities, so that all projects are evaluated, because they all might improve or might fail disabled people. I remember UK, we were very proud of an initiative to build 400 schools and to promote education of girls in particular in Pakistan. 400 schools, fantastic. Were they accessible? No, they were not. So those 400 schools may have been good for girls, but they were really bad for disabled people. And the cost of making things accessible is so small. It's so small. It's a bathroom, it's a level entrance, it's not much more in that basic situation. And they must include disabled people. So Herr Sobotka said you welcome the challenge of disability. So I don't apologize for talking so much about the human rights of persons with disabilities. For me, the UN Convention is our best guide to how we have to think about disability. It should be our moral compass, both at home and abroad. I say that in Austria, I say that in the United Kingdom. It's the inspiration, I know, for the Zero Project and for the Light for the World. So let's all work together to progress towards the effective inclusion of persons with disabilities. So I hope that you will count me as a critical friend of Austria, because I listen to Haydn. I come here often, I listen to Haydn, who is tormented by disease most of his life. Beethoven, who, as we all know, became deaf. Mozart, who perhaps today would be considered to have Tourette's syndrome, He was very uncontrolled in his passions. And Schubert, who, like Mozart, died young and from chronic disease. So the lesson I take from these four superb composers is that illness and impairment are no obstacle to greatness. These are unquestionably great composers, great people of history. They were also experiencing illness and impairment. It is no obstacle to greatness. We can and do succeed in all walks of life, contribute to the happiness of everyone else. You help us because we help you. With us at our most productive, you, your society, Ethiopian society, the countries we work, will be better. It helps in development. So by promoting accessibility, as Zero Project is teaching us this week, and by promoting inclusion, as Light for the World tries to do in all our work, we can best ensure the success of people with disabilities. And through them, we can make all our lives better. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Tom Shakespeare. And especially for your great action that you have taken in the last years and showing and proving that what you preach, you also walk the talk and show that we can improve the lives of others if we are able to participate. Wenn Menschen mit Behinderung den Zugang haben,
if people with disabilities have access to society, we will be able to take society forward. What needs to change or be created is the framework conditions. Decisions must be taken so that everybody can take part. And we want the world to be a good one, a beautiful one. And we want to be a part in creating a better world. You'll be seeing shortly how this is possible, how this is made possible, innovations that move so that everybody has access, labor market, education, leisure time, social participation, decision-making. These are the areas. Here we see that technology and digitalization play an important role, and I'm delighted that we'll be able to present all those projects to you. If you think those projects are fascinating, if you want to be in touch, there's a sheet on your seat, and you then can fill it out and cross and tick the box for the projects you want to get involved in more closely. And that sheet, you could put it into the ballot boxes at the exit of this room. You'll be contacted by those involved in the projects. Question: how are those projects actually, how do they come about? I'd like to discuss this with Michael Fembeck, who is the program director of Zero Project. Let's give him a round of applause. So we will be seeing the presentations of those fascinating projects. It's a very complex selection process. How does it actually happen? As Martin Essel explained, how we ended up with the 76 awardees. It's a process that takes 6 months, peer reviews, shortlisting, voting. These are the steps we have to pursue each year. So this year we ended up with 76 innovations. So we have 76 innovations from all over the world, 35 countries, covering subjects from zero-access Rohingya camps in Bangladesh, underground in Barcelona, mystery shopping concept for people with disabilities from Israel. So how did we actually digest them into those 5 projects we're going to present here in Parliament? Thanks to all 5 of them. It was absolutely a pleasure working with you, and it was quite inspiring how we've been able to interact and how we've been able to work together. So a big thank you on the part of Zero Project to everybody. How did it work in practice? Quite interesting. I did a pre-selection down to 20 from the 76. And I did a speed talk, a word wrap which each and every one, and so it was 30 seconds they were allowed, and they presented their project. And then I thought, what is it I remember? What did I like? And everybody was able to present their major assets. And then I said, well, there might be an interest. What could a member of parliament do for you? So it was a ping-pong thing. It wasn't artificial intelligence applied. It was a very basic, simple process we applied. And then finally, it was a 2 or 3 times exchange, and then we had found the projects. And these projects are being implemented today, and they are actually really looking forward to being linked up with decision makers here in the Austrian Parliament. We now have the president, the third president of the Parliament, who was instrumental here. Unfortunately, he's not here today for health reasons, as was mentioned. So you will step in, and you will take a member of Parliament here who will present the projects, present their ideas, their train of thought during the selection process, and then we'll give the floor to the initiators of the project to present their projects. And then we have our experts who come into play. They check those projects in depth, and they gave some thoughts as to their practical implementation. And then at the end, we'll get a final statement from members of parliament as to what is going to be the next step specifically, so that we really walk the talk. So Michael, I'll give you the floor to present the first project. It's called Accessible Zagreb, an online service for the city of Zagreb. When President Hofer was very quick in taking a decision, who said, well, that's the project that interests me most. It was a zero-barrier project implemented by the city of Zagreb. The city offers structured access, how it presents information about itself without barriers. There's an annual plan with additional information. They developed a methodology for everybody to be involved. Very interesting project. It's not a huge city. It's a mid-sized city. And Mr. Hofer actually thought this might be a project that can be translated to other Austrian cities. And that was the reason why he opted for this project, Zagreb. Andreas, I think there's going to be a video now.
Zero Project proudly presents the Accessible Zagreb online service by the city of Zagreb from Croatia. Accessible Zagreb is a web and app service of the city of Zagreb from Croatia that provides detailed information about accessibility and the respective accessibility features of public facilities and streets, as well as real-time information about public transport. Accessible Zagreb is available in Croatian, English, and German.
Ja, congratulations. Da können wir natürlich das Team beglückwünschen.
Congratulations to the team for having made it in the selection process, and you now have a possibility to present your project here in Vienna. We have with us the initiator for this project, Marinka Bakula-Angelic from Croatia. I can see her already. Can we hear her?
We are very glad to have you here, and now the stage is yours. We are really looking forward to your presentation.
We are very honored to be with you today and to present our project. Accessible Zagreb is a service providing citizens and visitors of Zagreb with 3 layers of accessibility information: individual buildings, streets and roads, and public transport. We are developing this service for over 100,000 persons with disabilities living in Zagreb and persons with reduced mobility. This project was developed based on the handbook Zagreb Guide for Persons with Disabilities, first published in 2001 and is regularly updated. It contains information on more than 2,500 objects divided into categories such as education, health, sports, social welfare, culture, etc. The handbook was converted into a web service and a mobile app in 2019, making it more interactive and accessible. The present form is a result of hackathon with local students and startups. Persons with disabilities and hackathon participants have been involved in the present process from the beginning of this process. We are now developing a system which will allow citizens to participate and add accessibility data to the application. The development is based on collaboration with academy, private and non-profit sector. In 2020, we upgraded our application in collaboration with the University of Zagreb by mapping of accessibility of roads in the wider city center. This is a digital service in continuous development based on the needs of citizens with reduced mobility. Algorithm was created which helps users navigate from point A to point B, avoiding map obstacles. Our plan is to grow the service through a crowdsourcing platform. There are volunteers conducting the mapping. Further, we plan to develop curriculum for mapping of roads with the University of Zagreb. This will allow every generation of students to participate in the development of accessible Zagreb. We are planning to provide additional support for blind and visually impairment users to integrate new assistive technologies. And finally, we would like to help other municipalities in Croatia and in Europe to develop such a service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Angelic, for your presentation. And it shows how cooperation on a public and private level, and especially using the resources that one has at taking, can profit a lot of people to reach a more accessible city. And over 2,500 objects is just impressive to know if they are accessible or not. Now we will have some questions for you and your team. Your colleague Mustafa Sharifi will join us. He's the project coordinator of this project, and you can see another person in the image. Sie sehen auch Dr. Hans.
You can see Dr. Hans-Jörg Höfer, who's the ombudsperson for people with disabilities. He'll be the first to ask a question. He's not amongst us here today, but I think he can ask the question through the Zoom conference. So very good morning. Could I ask you for your first question? Good morning, and thank you very much. I'm an ombudsperson for people with disabilities in Austria, and I'm pursuing a project to improve accessibility in tourism. I'd be interested in particular, how are the data recorded, whether they are verified, and if so, how were they verified, and how did you solve the question of updating data? We know that environments change. It's important to have up-to-date data, and that's an important thing I'd like to know. Thank you, Dr. Hofer.
Was for you, Mr. Sharifi, tourism is very important for Austria, and Dr. Hofer has a project in tourism to make it more accessible. How do you collect the data? How do you make sure that it is verified, or is it verified, and how do you refresh or actualize the data so that everyone knows that it's not an old building that was marked as accessible, but the new one is not?
Thank you for your question, Dr. Hofer. Well, the data was collected in cooperation with the Association of Persons with Disabilities of Croatia. The abbreviation is SOIH, which is an umbrella organization of all the disability organizations in Croatia. Together we have developed a methodology based on the accessibility regulations for persons with disabilities and persons with reduced mobility. And data was collected via fieldwork. So our team consisted of accessibility experts, urbanists, employees of our office, and of course persons with disabilities. So therefore we can say that the data set was or is verified. However, as the space in which we all live changes frequently, it's necessary to update the data. And it's very important for us to have the data accurate all the time. So this required for us to find the best possible way to do it, to achieve it. So it was a big challenge for us, and perhaps maybe it still is, but we are currently updating the data in a way that the owners of the facilities themselves ask us to make the necessary changes. We have service users who report the changes and ask us to implement them. And we have a base of all the contacts, and we send out requests for updates. But we are currently considering to develop a crowdsourcing platform that would facilitate the updating of the data and citizen participation as well, so that the received data will be verified by a specially trained person. And we hope that this would be a sustainable way to get the data needed for the service.
I can imagine that the data is very valuable, especially for big technological companies that can otherwise use it then as well to integrate into their products. So it looks like you have a very good model there. So thank you for the answer. We have a second question. Wir haben natürlich eine zweite Frage und
we have a second question, and the second question is Rudolf Kravania, President of the Austrian Association for Disabled Persons. Very good morning from my side. We represent people with disabilities, and when it comes to zero barriers and accessibilities, we act as advisors and consultants. I have a question on the app and the scope of the app. What about sensory impairments, people who can't hear, who are sight impaired? What about the app? How can they navigate? What does it look like?
Herzlichen Dank, Kavanya. So the question is, how do you define accessibility? Is it just limited, so the application, the function of the app, limited to structural accessibility, or are other disabilities like mental disabilities or visually impaired people also implicated into the app and can use the app for their enhancement of their life? One of you, whoever feels to answer.
May I answer?
Of course.
Mr. Kravanya, thank you for your question. I must repeat. We have been working with many persons with disabilities during 20 years, and now we have a result of our mutual work. It is this application or service or project, Zagreb, Accessible Zagreb. Yes, this service is focused on and will be focused on more dimensions of accessibility. We are focused on the accessibility of objects, public transport, roads and streets, but we plan to further expand existing accessibility data with additional information. For example, we are in process of implementing data of public transport with our companies which provides all implementation. And for us is a very big challenge because persons with disabilities are persons who are involved in all of phases of this process. Also, we plan to implement data of other amenities. For example, parts of playgrounds for children, all children, children with disabilities and children without these impairments. Other issues, as for example, roads, recreational zones for all the citizens which are grounded without, as of principles of universal designs, and all other amenities. So the main goal of our project is to create application that it will be service to provide door-to-door information on mobility and accessibility of persons with multiple difficulties and all of difficulties. This service is accessible to persons with sensory impairments, and we are working with their representatives, developing features that are important for them. The main partners in our project and development of this project are persons with disabilities, users.
So other facets.
We don't know how will be this project on the end, but we are a very creative team with our colleagues, and I'm sure that it will be very great.
I'm sure of that as well. So the project is alive and adaptable to all kinds of disabilities. Thank you for the answer and the insights you gave us, how you develop such a complex process of integrating other disabilities as well. Thank you to Marinka Bakula-Angelic and Mustafa Sharifi for your presentation and your answers. Danke auch an Dr. Hans.
Thank you also to Dr. Hans-Jörg Hofer and to Mr. Rudolf Cravagna. And perhaps we will soon have accessible in another city. Michael, could I pass on again the role of the third President of Parliament? I think there were some specific developments that were discussed. Please come forward to the podium and share with us your ideas on this last project. I'd like to once again summarize what was discussed with President Hofer. He'll be traveling to Zagreb with a delegation and inspect the project in detail, and then he will try to actually motivate Austrian mayors to also adopt the project. And I think we have one commitment by the mayor of the city of Wels. I hope this would summarize Mr. Hofer's commitment. Thank you very much, and applause for the project and everybody involved. We hope that by next year's time, we'll have accessible Vienna, accessible Wels, accessible Linz, and many other cities in Austria. Who knows what becomes possible if you have such a scalable project and simplify data maintenance and have building management that creates accessibility in terms of buildings and also for sensory impairments. We now turn to Denmark, And the lady who selected the project, Be My Eyes, is Member of Parliament Kira Grünberg. Could I ask her for her motivation and her explanations? Kira, a warm welcome to you as well. Imagine you are partially sighted or you are blind and you're dressing up for a dinner. And you're not sure whether the skirt you chose really matches the color of your shirt. And you don't want to do it wrong on that particular evening. Or you're preparing mashed potatoes and you're not sure whether the milk is still safe to drink. Or another problem. You're sitting in front of your computer and nothing works suddenly. And your screen reader can't help you either. So there's countless such moments where, as a blind person or a partially sighted person, you would like to borrow the eyes of a seeing person. And in such situations and many other situations, Be My Eyes helps blind people and partially sighted people. And that is the reason why I opted for this innovative project from Denmark, and I look forward to its presentation.
Zero Project proudly presents Be My Eyes app from Denmark. Be My Eyes, a Danish startup company with headquarters in San Francisco, California, introduced a free app that connects blind and low vision people with sighted volunteers. The app consists of a two-way audio and a one-way video feed that allows the sighted volunteer to be the eyes of the blind user.
Congratulations to the team from Be My Eyes, and we are delighted that unfortunately we couldn't see the video on the big screen, but you saw it. We'll have a look at it again for everybody to see it.
Be My Eyes, a Danish startup company with headquarters in San Francisco, California, introduced a free app that connects blind and low vision people with sighted volunteers. The app consists of a two-way audio and a one-way video feed that allows the sighted volunteer to be the eyes of the blind user.
So I repeat my congratulations, and let's repeat our applause to the team. And we have Karen Slane from Be My Eyes, who will present the project to us and show us how it actually worked. So welcome, Karen Slane.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the Essel Foundation and Ms. Grünberg. As you saw, Be My Eyes is a free mobile app that connects people who are blind, low vision, partially sighted, to a sighted volunteer. Over the years, we've expanded this concept to allow our users to connect to company representatives as well. So we find that each call that is made over the platform represents a moment of inaccessibility. And this is really where the opportunity lies for us. We see calls happening thousands of times every day, and we have a user base now of over 400,000 people and a volunteer base of over 6 million. So it's a great experience for our users because it means that everyone is able to get assistance No one is ever left hanging, and it's a highly rewarding experience for our volunteers who literally have a perspective shift when they answer a call. We like to think of each call as being a good deed waiting to happen, and we think that this is a great example of empathetic innovation, an opportunity to innovate. So with that, I think that's it for my presentation, and I'm really excited to address the questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Please stay with us here. You talked about the situation for the volunteers, which is a part that probably less is thought of in such a situation. We also have two questions for you. One is from Martina Gollner. Martina Gollner is the...
Martina Gollner represents an association to help blind people and partially sighted people in Austria, and here's our first question. Thank you very much. Let me state that I'm a social worker by my profession, and my clients who come to get advice from our association are largely older people. And sometimes these people do not know or don't want to use a smartphone. They cannot use a smartphone. They have difficulties using a smartphone. My question, are you planning to extend your services, the scope of your services, so that voluntary helpers can find out useful information without having to use a camera? I was thinking here of some short internet research, for instance. Thank you very much.
So the question is, Ms. Gollner is a social worker at an organization that helps people with vision impairment, and many of them are elderly people that don't use smartphones in a way that we use them, or they don't have them or cannot use them. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to use the service in a more analog way without a camera and just make the contact and someone then looks something up on the internet for the visually impaired person? Is this something that you have on the roadmap?
So this would be a great opportunity for us. It's something that I know is important for us in terms of integrating with maybe a hardware device. We are fully integrated with all of the built-in accessibility features for smartphones. So that's been our focus right now. But that's not to say that we don't see the importance of this sometime in the future, and we would welcome any partnerships that would help us arrive to that.
Das heißt, auch da die Möglichkeit.
So again, a possibility for the future to have this service for people who are unable to use digital services or don't want to use digital services. So there will be a possibility to expand that. And you said that there will be functionalities from other devices being used, that this can be connected. And here our next question ties in perfectly. Christian Zehet-Grubner, Managing Director of VDEBIS. He is logging on online. Mr. Zehet-Gruber, can you hear me? Yes, I can. And a warm welcome from Vienna, Floridsdorf, VDEBIS. I have two questions. One question, what was the most touching event which you achieved, the most touching result you achieved with the app? And have you ever avoided a dangerous situation with the app?
From Christian Zehet-Gruber from VDEBIS, which is something that might be interesting for you and your services. They have many technological developments. You probably know them. The question is, what is your most emotional story that you have using Be My Eyes, and were you able to maybe help in a very dangerous situation with your application?
Yes. I would say we see many, and we hear about many touching experiences that happen quite often from parents using the platform to have their child's basketball game narrated to them in real time, to a bride spot checking her dress last minute, to women being able to read their pregnancy tests and get the results in a private way. I would say that in terms of a potentially dangerous situation, something that recently happened was a woman was dropped off from the wrong bus on the outskirts of Budapest. And it was quite late at night. She was totally lost, and she was able to reach someone through the app who spoke Hungarian. He was actually located in Michigan in the United States. And he stayed on the phone with her for about an hour to guide her back to her bus stop. So presented a potentially dangerous situation.
So this is real life impact that you are having with your application. So danke, Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Tehet Grobner.
Potential volunteer, how do I sign up to be a volunteer on your app?
I would encourage everyone to volunteer. It's totally free, and know that you're really making a difference for our community and our users.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lane, congratulations on your project. And of course, we are also looking forward to the next steps. Das heißt, wir freuen uns auf dich.
We're looking forward to the next steps. Kira Grünberg gave some thought to follow up on this project as she selected the project. What's going to happen? I will register, I will apply, and I hope you will follow suit. And as you can see, it has an impact on many people and their lives. Kira, you have the floor. I think what we've heard right now is that not only people were helped in various situations, but that there are voluntary helpers who actually see where the barriers are. It's not just to help in a given moment, but to see in what situations blind and partially sighted people find themselves. Where do they need support? Where can we change things for them no longer to need support? And I think that can also have a big effect. Let's not forget that. It's useful to make Be My Eyes more known in Austria, not only for blind and partially sighted people who can use the app, but also for the population at large, because everyone can be a volunteer and help people with Be My Eyes. A first step would be, is this presentation here today at the kickoff event of the Zero Project Conference. And then I will present this innovation and promote it in my political work by talks with the community and also with organizations of volunteers who are involved in this area already. It has been shown how valuable international conferences like the Zero Project Conference are, especially when it comes to networking. In Austria, we have a similar project. Guide Me is its name. And Guide Me is inspired on the same idea and offers a comparable solution. However, Guide Me is focused on companies, and in its implementation, it relies on professional, trained operators. But again, seeing people borrow and lend their eyes to blind people and partially sighted people. So I can only invite you to download the app, register, and support blind people and partially sighted people in their day-to-day work. Voluntary work becomes very easy in this manner. Thank you very much, Kira Grünberg. I am convinced that the 200 people who are involved today will be downloading the app, and the 10,000s of people who will be listening in on the Zero Project Conference in the next few days.
Jump in users in the next days. So thank you very much. Jetzt freuen wir uns.
We now look forward to the next project. Project number 3 we are going to present. It's from very far away from our perspective in terms of space and time, Southern Australia. And it's not only constructural barriers, it was also in the past 2 years that it was important to convey life-important information to everybody so that people can actually access information. They're not excluded from the news that are presented, that you learn what's happening on the spot. And here, online reporting and digital communication played an important role. Here is a solution we'd like to present to you, and Member of Parliament Verena Nussbaum is going to present the solution. We then move to the video clip, and then we'll move to Australia. I'd like to welcome you, Ms. Nussbaum, with an applause, of course. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am absolutely delighted to be part and parcel of this event. And I think it's quite interesting how creative the project and ideas are that are being presented here today. It's without doubt, and we've heard it a couple of times today, especially the keynote speaker told us that there's still enormously huge problems at the various levels in policy making. Some solutions are complex. For some, it would be easy to be implemented, and it would not cost a lot of time or money. With digitization, we now have a possibility to make the digital area accessible to almost everybody. For that, barriers need to be removed. We have to avoid that digitization becomes a factor of exclusion instead of a factor of inclusion. For instance, websites are not compatible with reading devices. Design and color are not chosen in a barrier-free manner. Very often, we discuss accessibility when a homepage has already been launched. The font, the type, the size, the colors, graphic design are essential in accessibility of a website. And these are decisions you have to take anyway when you design a website. So it would be easier to actually consider all those requirements as and when the platform is designed. Also, on account of the fact that many websites, also those of our governments and province governments, still do not meet the requirements of accessibility. And this is why I selected the project of the Australian Government Online Accessibility Toolkit that deals especially with this problem and offers a concept for low-barrier websites.
The project proudly presents Online Accessibility Toolkit, Australia. The Online Accessibility Toolkit, published by the Regional Government of Southern Australia, is a free and publicly available set of tools for making websites and online solutions more accessible and inclusive. The toolkit contains 8 topics and was designed in consultation with people with disabilities.
Fantastic to see the toolkit recognised as a 2022 Zero Project awardee. Congratulations to everyone involved in co-designing this community-driven approach.
Says Cliff Edwards from Government of South Australia.
Congratulations. Wir gratulieren natürlich auch und wir freuen uns.
So congratulations, and we're delighted that it has been shown that the public sector can take a leading role in this area. We are happy to have the person responsible for this project of the Government of Southern Australia, Dr. Eva Balan-Vnuk. Dr. Balan-Vnuk, good evening. Good evening in Australia.
Are you joining us from?
Good evening. I'm joining you from Adelaide in South Australia.
And it's very late with you over there, right?
It's actually just 8 p.m, so we're still very reasonable, and what a wonderful conference it's been so far.
We are very happy to have you here, and now I will give you the stage to present your project.
Thank you very much. I am genuinely honoured to be addressing you today. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the South Australian Government, and my team developed the Online Accessibility Toolkit, and we are so proud to be one of the finalists for the Zero Project Conference. The South Australian Government passed the Disability Inclusion Act in 2018 with a new online accessibility policy representing an invaluable opportunity to implement this important legislation in new ways. My team saw this as an opportunity to be proactive in our approach, and uniquely, we wanted to do it in partnership with people with disability, government agencies, industry experts, and private enterprise. To create this policy, we first had to understand why are we creating it, asking two important questions. Firstly, what were the existing barriers people with disability faced when accessing online services? And secondly, what were the barriers faced by government staff trying to implement online accessibility? We ran over 50 workshops, we visited people in their home to see how they use assistive technology, we engaged with vision impairment in peak bodies and the broader community to understand what was required. We then established a working group to co-design this policy, including people with lived experiences, non-profit organisations, government, leading specialists, to develop a draft policy, which was then consulted with over 2,000 individuals and organisations who provided valuable feedback. People asked the South Australian Government to provide, first, an easy-to-understand version of the policy. Second, a better way of managing accessibility across South Australian Government websites. Third, a support network. And fourth, supporting resources to help achieve the aims of this policy. And this point 4 is that resulted in the creation of the Online Accessibility Toolkit, which provides valuable and practical steps and instructions to help implement the policy itself. The toolkit provides support to product managers, content creators, developers, user researchers, visual design specialists, and procurement people. The toolkit itself is community-driven. It is designed to evolve. It is designed to be a leading model for all levels of government across Australia. It represents evidence-based best practice, and importantly, it is free and publicly available to everyone around the world. We hope that other organisations, corporations and governments will consider using these resources that have been developed. They're licensed through Creative Commons, and so they're accessible to anyone who wants to use them. We also have an exceptionally vibrant community of practice that anyone can join us via our website, accessibility.sa.gov.au. Importantly, the barriers to use the Online Accessibility Toolkit are very low. Frau Nussbaum said, it is practice that you do capture business and user requirements for any new digital artefact that is being developed. Ensuring that accessibility is embedded right at the beginning saves effort, saves time, saves resources later in the process to deliver genuine community benefit and support digital inclusion. Policies are extremely powerful levers for government as they influence and change behaviour as well as mindsets. South Australian government agencies know that they must develop all new websites and digital artefacts using the Online Accessibility Policy so that our services are truly accessible to everyone in our community of every ability. Thank you so much again for the opportunity to share our work on this global stage.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balan Vnuk. And I know that you have lived in Austria, so the questions that are coming right now, you will understand them in German still. I will translate them into English. It's probably better if you listen to the German version as well. Wir freuen uns natürlich jetzt.
We look forward to the questions we have prepared. And I think it's quite interesting that you should embed it from the very beginning when you design new websites. And that would actually serve as a model for others. First question, the President of the Austrian Council for the Interests of Disabled People, Michael Svoboda. You have the floor. Thank you very much, and congratulations for this wonderful development, which does not only assist people with sensory impairments, but also many others. My question, specifically, with the central provision of the toolkit did you actually accelerate the process of making government websites zero barrier free or fully accessible? And how far has this process come? What's the percentage rates of the websites that are accessible or barrier free?
Understood everything, but still, did you see an acceleration in the adaptation of accessibility with this online toolkit as of the official websites of the South Australian government websites?
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Svoboda, für die Frage.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Launched this policy and it was approved. It was not retrospective. And that's really important because there's a huge cost in rebuilding and refactoring websites and digital artefacts. So the policy is forward-looking. I'm so pleased to say there has been incredible progress made. South Australian Government uniquely has a holistic website, sa.gov.au, that has over 14 million visits every year. It is the single point of place for the community to find information from the government, and the entire site is accessible. And equally, we have around 60 government websites that my team supports, and they are all genuinely accessible. But it has been a slow process. As old websites get renewed, then we make sure that they are built with the accessibility policy built into them.
And if you would have to call a number, how many percent would you say are accessible on the whole? I mean, you said that all of the 60 governments...
Greater than 70 or 80%.
That's a high percentage. So good to see that it is working. We also have a second question from Victoria Doppler. Zweite Frage kommt.
Second question from Victoria Doppler. She's a consultant, inclusion expert, and ability manager with Caritas. Victoria, can we have your question? Congratulations on this wonderful project. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and I'd like to know what was the major challenge for the project, which you had to overcome, and then also what was the biggest positive surprise?
What were the challenges and what was the most surprising thing on working at this project?
Herzlichen Dank, Frau Doppler. Probably one of the most challenging, the starting point for our team was even getting support for this. I think that was the hardest part, the kind of the persuasion that it had to be co-created. But luckily, we got past that barrier. And then, to be honest, we were overwhelmed by the willingness of the non-profit sector to engage genuinely, deeply, openly, honestly, to help us understand. But I think it was the first step of people understanding this is important. As Professor Tom Shakespeare said, we have it in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. We have to make services accessible to everyone. So that was what we had to implement. One of the most wonderful surprises has been through this initiative is our community of practice. More than 200 people and their government, non-profit, individuals, private enterprise. Anyone can join, if you speak English, from around the world and join our community of practice of people sharing best practice. How do you do things? Sharing tips. So there's a genuine movement and groundswell of support for this that people are so excited by.
So you are living the principles of the Zero Project community to exchange the knowledge and connect everyone who wants to participate and to contribute. Thank you very much, Dr. Eva Balan-Vnuk, and all the best for you and your team. And I hope that a lot of cities, countries will copy your approach. And we would love to have you back in Vienna soon. So all the best to Australia.
Herzlichen Dank.
So as we can see, when we think that things get difficult, that the process gets difficult, if you want to involve everybody right from the start, you still can see that this is a successful path. Could I ask for the final concluding words on this project by Verena Nussbaum? I think what is most important with this toolkit, it's about something that was developed together and in cooperation with the community. I think that's the most important factor. Globalization has reached an extent that it will be necessary to still translate this manual into German, but we know that the programming of websites is something international. I don't think we can use that as a pretext or excuse, saying there's just an English version of that. And I think it would be a good opportunity for us. And I will use all the possibilities I have as a member of parliament to make sure that the federal government uses this toolkit for the construction of its websites. There's even a European standard for the design of websites, so that it's always about the future, never about the past. So we said, let's begin from here and let's make sure that we can have that implemented at government level, the parliament level, as the president is here just vis-a-vis. That would be a big feat and achievement. Especially, we know there's e-commerce, there's delivery services that have seen a boom, food delivery, that what that means for the economy if everybody can be addressed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Verena Nussbaum. It is a factor for the economy, 15% of everyone. So many companies would be able to tap on such resources. And this is something you can do if you embed all these aspects right from the very beginning into your business models. I move on to another project from Israel and the US. We've been hearing so often that people with disabilities need to have a voice and that people should hear the voice. It should be an authentic voice. It should be open and frank. And this is made possible technologically by the next project. And I look forward to welcoming the Member of Parliament, Heike Grebien. She will first present this project. Ladies and gentlemen, on site, and those of you who are logged on digitally, for our coexistence in a family, in a partnership at work, leisure time, in all walks of life, communication is essential. It's necessary that we understand each other, listen to each other. It allows us to understand things we don't know because they are not part of our lives. Meanwhile, we're seeing that several language assistants are available that allow people with disabilities to communicate and to control various devices. And often they need a clear, understandable language, and that excludes people with speech impairments. So what we are missing, what is lacking from my perspective, something I have not found in Austria, is a software or app that can understand unclear language that is difficult to understand. So you can speak into the app, and that would mean that people who are severely speech impaired will be in a position to communicate with their own voice and to do that independently and to train the app. We talk about self-determined, independent living, participation in society, and that would be essential. And therefore, I am absolutely delighted to present this wonderful innovation to you from Israel, a VoiceIt startup, to present it to the Zero conference and to support it as a mentee. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Proudly presents VoiceIt speech recognition app from Israel. Voice It is an app that uses AI to recognize the speech patterns of its users and enables people with speech disabilities to communicate in their own voice and directly with others. The app, developed by a startup company from Israel, uses artificial intelligence components to continuously improve its automated speech recognition capabilities.
Und auch da natürlich herzliche Gratulation.
Congratulations. You've met the complex selection criteria, and we're happy that the co-founder of Voice It is here today, Sarah Smolley. And one thing that fascinated me particularly, the own language. So welcome to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the kind introduction and for inviting me to be here today. I'm Sarah. I'm one of the co-founders of Voice It. We're an Israel-based company, and our mission is to leverage the best of AI and machine learning voice technologies to help people with disabilities live more independently, safely, and happily. My grandmother was diagnosed with Parkinson's at age 40. So by the time I was born, she had lost most of her motor capabilities, but more than anything, it was her speech that was affected. And of course, even as a young child, I felt her pain and frustration because it was so difficult for her to communicate even basic human needs, like I'm thirsty or it's cold. This is the day-to-day reality for millions around the world with impaired speech correlated with a diversity of underlying medical conditions and disorders, not just degenerative disease, such as in my family, or stroke, as in the case of my co-founder, our CEO, Danny, but for many other situations affecting speech. So this was our personal experience, and the many others that have reached out to us since were our inspiration to develop Voice It. We are a speech recognition technology that learns the person's unique way of speaking and then can translate for them in real time, whether they're ordering a coffee in a coffee shop, speaking with a medical professional, or simply expressing to a loved one, "I love you." The person trains the software and then can use our application. It can be an iPhone or an iPad, perhaps mounted on a wheelchair if they use one. And as they use it, the machine learning capabilities continue to learn and adapt, so it gets more accurate as the person uses it. Now, we learned from our community that this first product, enabling in-person communication, facilitating this kind of connection with others, was empowering and transformative. But then we learned that in this new world of voice technologies, increasingly mainstream in our lives, whether it's using voice tech on an iPhone or in smart home scenarios or integrated in cars, increasingly mainstream, we realized we could do a lot more. We could help people talk to their machines. Voice technology has the potential to provide a whole new dimension of independence and quality of life for people with disabilities. So you can imagine someone that may rely on a human caregiver to do many basic everyday tasks for them, whether it's turning on and off a light or reminding them to take medication. Using voice technology, the person can do this on their own. The problem is, of course, that these mainstream voice technologies are not designed for many of the people who can actually benefit from it the most, because they don't have standard speech patterns. So what we've done is built our technology so it can also be embedded into mainstream voice technologies, increasing independence in this way. So we started to explore partnerships with some of the major major companies involved in this space. And last year, so smack in the middle of the pandemic, On the International Day of Disabilities in 2020, we announced our first partnership integrating our technology with Amazon Alexa, enabling people with non-standard speech to turn on and off a light or adjust the thermostat or play music on their own using their voices for the first time. We've since been exploring new applications of this technology through collaborations around the world. Because it's personalized to the speaker, it can be essentially work in most languages, and we validated this in different places in Europe. And we're just so excited to be here to learn more from stakeholders from different perspectives and to increase the impact of our technology. So thank you again so much for allowing us to be here and share our technology and our stories with you.
Thank you, Sarah Smalley. I will join you here. Very exciting, and congratulations on the big partnership. There are like millions of devices lying around, smart home devices, that if they can implement your technology, a lot of people can use them and really live independently. I'm very fascinated. We have two questions for you also. The first one is from Julia Moser. Julia Moser, head of inclusion by My Ability, einer der
one of the most experienced consultants when it comes to inclusion. Julia, can we have your question, please? Thank you very much.
For this really exciting innovation, what I really like about it is that it's not only about giving the power of speech to people with non-standard speech, but really enabling everyone to listen, and that's what I really like about it. Thank you very much. Meine Frage, in diesen Projekten...
So my question, in these projects, it's always essential that people with impairments are involved from the very beginning, that they are continuously involved in the testing and the implementation. That is one aspect I find particularly important. And the second aspect, what I like in this project, it's not about finding an insular solution, but also to have mainstream solutions that are accessible for everybody. I'd like to know, what is the success factor that was decisive so far, and what is going to be important in the future?
She's very fascinated with your project, as she said, but it's very important to include people with disabilities in the process of developing, of thinking about the product, but also not to just design a solution that works in one isolated case, but also have it like on a standard platform like you are developing it. But what was the key aspect of success for VoiceIt, and what will it be in the future for the success of the app?
Thank you for the question. And I also want to thank you for that comment, because I think that's so true of many of the technologies that we're building, that it's really not just about the end user, but for all the people around them and for society in general. And we've seen that quite a lot, where people use our application not only so that they're understood, because maybe they may have have the dexterity ability to be able to type, but to allow others to be able to stop and listen to what they have to say. So I really appreciate that comment a lot. In terms of what is essential for VoiceIt's success, in the end, it's our partnerships and building awareness within major technology providers. I think at the end of the day, many of us, and perhaps our goals, are not simply to identify ourselves as, assistive technologies or devices that are only for, small portion of the population, but rather to make mainstream technologies accessible for everyone and to be inclusive. And that's certainly VoiceIt's vision, and ultimately also crucial to our commercial success as well.
Thank you very much. Zweite Frage.
Second question from Franz Josef Huheinig, a former member of parliament, and he now works in the Austrian Broadcasting Association in humanitarian broadcasting. I know from experience that ever since Franz Josef has been working with ORF, so many things have transformed, and we look forward to getting your question. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andreas. I think I will need to voice it up myself. I'd like to take this opportunity and congratulate you on this event. It's a wonderful event. What Martin Essel has done here, he has good connections and networks. He's involved policymakers. The project is growing and growing, so congratulations. I also have a problem with speaking. My question relates to implementation, usability question. How can this app hear? Can it also hear sounds? Can it perceive sounds? For instance, if I can't talk, then I can only do the clack, clack, clack with my tongue. And that is a means of communication. Clacking twice means I have to be drained. Clacking 3 times means, or 4 times, means I can't get any air, I can't breathe, do something. And the question is, can the app translate that into words? Second question, how clearly can the app listen if something is hard to understand, difficult to understand? Could it repeat that in a way that is easier to understand? And then a third question, is it possible that written texts can be read out by the app in one's own voice? That would be wonderful, no? Thank you. Thank you, Franz Josef.
3 little questions that I will direct to I will ask the first one. Is it possible to train the algorithm, the artificial intelligence, for individual sounds, not just spoken words? He gave us the example that if he cannot speak right now in the moment, he just makes the noise. And this means that he needs some assistance, and double the noise means something else. Is it possible to train on such an individual level with noises or parts of spoken words for the individual?
Well, next time you have to ask me a harder question. That one is too easy. Yes.
Okay, that's very good. A very short answer.
It's quite common, and many of our current users have different kind of complex situations. And in fact, some people will train the software with a click or with different utterances, and the software can then translate it to actually a longer sentence. So if that sound means may I have a glass of water? They can say, click, click, as you suggested, and it says, may I please have a glass of water? And it can also translate to a different language, so anything you'd like to do.
That's a new layer, so international communication is possible as well. The second question was if the app can listen and recognize if the other person doesn't understand you. So you say something, the other person doesn't understand you, so that it repeats the spoken words or the meaning again, so that everyone has a clear understanding of what was said.
Mm-hmm. It is designed to recognize specifically that person, so it's not going to be listening to the rest of the room specifically. And this is also for privacy purposes, so imagine if you're speaking to a medical professional and they're talking about your situation. But it is listening in the sense if you want to wake it up, you'll essentially talk to the device, and wake it up and then ask it to translate. So that in that case, if the person has dexterity impairments in addition to atypical speech, they can, wake the software up using their voice without having to press buttons.
Okay. And in case I realize that the person didn't understand me, I can just repeat, and the device or the app will repeat what I said. Okay. And the third question was if it's also possible to input text and then have the software, the app, output spoken words in the voice of the person, so like the reverse way of communicating.
It's technically possible, but other technologies do that as well. Our main value is learning the unique way of speaking and then being able to translate.
Okay. So thank you very much. Those were the questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your important work.
So much for Sarah Smolle, who demonstrated how VoiceIt works. And then let's listen to the final words by Heike Grebien. Would you move up to the podium, please? Thank you very much. Immediately after this meeting, and I'd like to thank Mr. Fembeck for organizing the meeting. So immediately after the meeting, I'd like to invite you to a roundtable for everybody who's interested. From business, economy, we have representatives there. And maybe today even, we can define one or the other further concrete steps. Thank you very much. As you can see, if you get the right people together, things can work really fast. And we have scalable applications here waiting to be implemented. I was thinking of things like university education, and then you could do with that app. Now, this brings me to the last project for today, innovation number 5. And it should have been explained by Member of Parliament Fiona Fiedler. As I mentioned, she is not here with us today for health reasons, but she has transmitted us a video message. This is iHarp, a company from Spain, and the founder is here with us. But first of us, let's listen to Fiona Fiedler's video message and then have a look at the video. Ladies and gentlemen, at Hofburg Palace and in front of your screens at home, this is my 3rd Zero Project conference. Unfortunately, I can only send you a video message because I have also been infected by corona. 2 years ago, it was the first time I attended, and I very well remember that I myself and my son, who accompanied me, actually remembered this event with lots of fascination and good memories. The variety of different projects and their brilliance made me speechless, and that doesn't happen very often in my life, believe me. And then I was asked, would I like to be a mentee for a project this year? And of course, I was all for it. Although it was difficult to select one specific project because every one of them is specific in its own way. And then finally, I opted for iHarp. The reason is a simple one. Ever since I've been young, music has been dominating my life, and marrying my husband, who operates a piano shop in Styria, this love of classical music has even become stronger. And when I feel weak and sad, music helps me, and it reinforces my good moods. Imagining that there would be no music in my life would make me sad. The iHarp project and the possibilities this project has for many people have become my favorite. Thank you very much.
Proudly presents iHarp Association from Spain. The iHarp Association started in 2011 in Barcelona under the auspices of Pompeu Fabra University, has developed iHarp, a digital musical instrument controlled by the eye and head movements. Musicians can play melodies by looking at the notes on the screen, and iHarp has a freemium business model with a free basic version.
Herzliche Gratulation auch an iHarp und
congratulations to iHarp. And I can only echo what Ms. Fiedler said and the important role of music alongside sports. And this shows that social participation is most instrumental in those areas. And perhaps an anecdote from my own life first. When I was young, I noticed that my smaller brothers and younger brothers had a big musical talent. They played the mandolin, piano, guitar, and I couldn't do that. My parents saw that I would have loved to play music, to play an instrument, the piano, the guitar, and then they thought, what kind of instrument could a person with one arm could play? And they talked to a composer and to a conductor, and he proposed the trumpet. I'm not going to play the trumpet here, but you have the three buttons. You can operate with your fingers with one hand. I tried a bigger one first, and then we actually got a piccolo trumpet for Andreas. So I learned to play the piccolo trumpet, and I was able to participate. So it's important to find solutions, with simple approaches. This is not always possible, and this is why iHarp is so important. You'll find that out when you hear more about it. Zacharias Vamvakoussis is here with us. Could I ask him to come to the podium? And we look forward to his presentation.
Hello. It is estimated that around 50 million people in the world. Okay, it's better like this. So it's estimated that around 50 million people in the world do not have access to conventional musical instruments due to motor disabilities. They cannot play music. At the same time, there is an estimation that around 20% of the population in Europe plays, to some degree, a musical instrument. And so I'm here to present iHarp. iHarp. It is the first musical instrument that can be played through eye or head movements. And playing music, having access to playing music, is really important, not only because playing music is fun, but also because it has been studied and shown that people that play music have reduced stress, anxiety, and depression. They have improved language abilities, increased emotional resilience, increased empathy, increased attention span, and increased self-confidence. So iHarp is a software that uses eye tracking to detect where users are looking at. This allows playing melodies by looking at a computer screen, and it also includes a gamified music teaching method, music teaching tools. A commercial version of the software was first released about a year ago, and there are already musicians and students learning to play music with the eyes for the first time around the world. So now we're going to show a video demonstrating 8 musicians and students of music with disabilities. 4 of them are people with cerebral palsy, and 4 of them with neurodegenerative diseases. So we can now see the video.
unglaublich.
Unbelievable, incredible, in which aspects of life technology allows for inclusion. And the images we've seen have shown us what is possible, what is feasible if you just want to make things happen and to allow everybody to be included.
I have questions prepared for you as well, and the first question comes from Bernadette Feuerstein. So Bernadette Feuerstein is
a campaigner for the rights of disabled person, and here comes our first question. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this possibility to take part in this conference and to see so many wonderful projects and to meet so many different people. I am absolutely impressed and stand in awe about what is possible through digitization. I think this has been demonstrated clearly in the video. What I think is especially successful and what is important to me is not only the technology, but the possibility technology gives to bring people together and to make music together, to play music together, or to bring people onto a stage together, allow them to actively contribute, play music, and to perform on stage, which is a very important aspect of participation in life. And my question, whether this tool, which appears to be quite complex to me, can it be adapted to individual abilities also in other areas, for instance, education, or in other spheres of the art?
Feuerstein, so she's very impressed in short summary with your solution. And the question is, it looks like the solution is very complex in his technical way of working. Is it possible to take it and use it in other aspects of life as well? I mean, eye tracking technology is something that is upcoming. She named an example in education, to use your solution in other things than music. Do you think there's a way for that?
Yeah, so our main purpose is to make playing music accessible to everyone, but this also opens up more possibilities. Like, for example, now people with quadriplegia have access to music therapy. And music therapy is a tool that can heal various conditions. Something else that many therapists have been telling me is that a tool like the iHarp can be used for people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But all this has to be studied because it's just theories that might actually come out true or not. So, yes.
So it remains to be seen, and collaborations with higher education institutions that could study your effects on the people using it could help you develop into other domains as well. So thank you for your answer. You will get a second question as well. Heidemarie Egger wird...
Heidemarie Egger will ask the second question. She's a communication expert on subjects such as women and impairments.
For me personally, creating music is not accessible because I'm not talented at all. But I love that you make it possible for people with disabilities who have talent to create music and to be part of this of the music life. Thank you very much for that. Meine Frage ist.
Now my question would be, what impact did user feedback of experts with disabilities have on your project? What were the lessons learned? And then a follow-up question, which, if you look back to the very beginning, What was the most surprising development after many years of development?
What impact did you get from the user feedback when experts with disabilities were using your product? This was the first question. And the second one was, what developments surprised you that you didn't expect and that you've learned now in using the solution?
So the first question, the iHarp was first implemented, the first prototype, in 2011 when I did my master thesis in music technology at the University Pompeu Fabra. And for 4 years, around 4 years, 5 years, hardly anyone had discovered it because it was in the research state. And then in 2015-16, Alper Kaya from Turkey, a person with ALS, a musician with ALS and a doctor, found out about the iHarp. We came in close contact, and iHarp owes a lot to Alper because he is a person very experienced in controlling the computer with head movements. He always wanted to be able to play music again. So many things developed in the iHarp come from feedback and suggestions that come from Alper. And another example is the first student, Joel Bueno from Barcelona. So around 2017, 1 year later, the parents of Joel, a child with 10 years, you have watched both Alper and Joel in the video previously. So with Joel and using the feedback of Joel, so a kid that wanted to play music and learn playing music. So Joel and the feedback I got from him helped develop music teaching methods in the iHarp. So now new students learn much faster, and this is thanks to Joel. And of course, this is an ongoing process. Like I'm personally giving and will always go on having some students myself. So I'm the main developer of the project, just to come in touch with the musicians, with the users. So every week, new features are implemented, improved based on the feedback, and also in contact with the music therapists that now use it as a tool in their sessions.
And the second question, what surprised you, what you didn't expect?
So what surprised? I was surprised to find out that music has an advantage. It gives visibility. So there is a concert, like in Barcelona, there was a concert where around 2,000, around 3,000 people watched Joel, the kid who watched before, playing Every Breath You Take, playing on stage. So because of that, many families, this video reached many families that had children with disabilities, and that for some reason they were not aware of what the technology offers today. They were not aware that augmentative, alternative communication exists through the eyes. And you can find this more often in Greece, where I come from. So what surprises me is that using music as a vehicle, we can raise awareness and about how more accessible the society can be. And many families have now bought eye trackers, and their children can now control the computer thanks to watching some iHarp video of someone performing. So this is a very surprising thing. And of course, what I didn't expect is how fulfilling all this would be for me personally, and for being on stage and playing music with musicians, and for them and their families. How fun it is to give classes to children with disabilities. And communicating through music, laughing with them. It's really rewarding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wambakuzis. An applause for you and your project. All the best for your future. We will watch the short video message from Fiona Fiedler in short, but you can take a seat, and of course we're looking forward to connecting you with all the people interested in your project. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, I think something very interesting has been said today. You not only give a voice to people, but their own voice. And this project shows that cultural expression is important for people with impairments, and that it's important for society to take part. And I am delighted to next year's subject, which will focus on the arts. And we want to have a practical start for iHub to be implemented in Austria. So let's look at the last video message from Fiona Fiedler. Ladies and gentlemen, you now know what the project is about in detail. And I wonder, are you as convinced as I am? But where do we go from here? As a member of parliament, I will do everything I can that as many people as possible can benefit from iHub. And I look forward to work together with Zero Project in this initiative. Together, we will select one person who will actually get this training in iHub and will accompany him right to a performance with an orchestra. And then I have the possibilities to get in touch with music schools, and there I will present iHub. I'm absolutely convinced that we can take many, many people on board who are actually attracted by iHub. A big thanks to Mr. Zacharias Vamvakusis, who has developed this project. As he said, it's his mission to make the life of people with impairments better through music. And as I said in the beginning, music is my life. And this is how I will pursue this mission together with Mr. Vamvakusis. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fiedler. So we all look forward to tomorrow's meeting, and we'll be able to show a video of that concert. And I think it's going to be a lot better than my taking out my trumpet and trying to play a few tunes. Thank you very much for everybody, for the innovations, for the projects. We'd like to give you this opportunity to get in touch, to fill in those forms, to put them into the ballot box, and to be reached so that we can take forward these innovations in Austria. So we look forward to connect people. And at the end of this day, I look forward to the conclusion by the Director of the Austrian Parliament, Dr. Harald Dossig. Could I give you the floor, please? With a round of applause as well. Mr. President, Mr. Essel, I will continue expressing my words of thanks. It has been a pleasure for us to host you once again this year for the kickoff event to the Zero Project Conference. As was mentioned by our presidents, we look forward to be your hosts next year, hopefully again. I'd like to thank everybody, the experts who have joined us this morning. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Essel and his team, together with the management of Parliament. They have prepared this day today in an excellent manner. I'd like to thank the members of Parliament who have made an active contribution. And in particular, what I thought remarkable is that we have been able to successfully implement this new format. It was highly interactive. I think it was quite entertaining in a way, with the various different roles assigned to people. I admired Mr. Unea for playing our moderator so sovereignly and so superbly. He had to look after our timetable, and I know from my own experience how difficult it sometimes is, and to keep to your time scale, and especially when there's more participants as planned. But still, he managed well. Also, let me say that this kickoff event and the things we are going to deal with at the Vienna International Center over the next 2 days during the Zero Project Conference is something that is a trigger and inspiration for Parliament for its own activities. In recent years, we had the benefit of the historic Parliament building being overhauled and renovated, and we had the opportunity of redesigning things right from the beginning. so we don't have to interfere with existing structures and construction problems. And interestingly, what we learned is that when it comes to making the building accessible and barrier-free, and although we've been believing for so long that inclusion is a very important subject, we found out that we are always learners in a process. And what we have learned is that what you first think about when you think about accessibility and inclusion, structural conditions, is only a very small part of the entire picture. This is something I said a couple of times also in this conference. Of course, regarding structural conditions in the new parliament building, all standards will be met that are state-of-the-art. That is a matter of course. However, in parallel, in addition to the structural adaptations, we are fully redesigning our internet website presentation, our website. And again, I can report to you that the aspect of inclusion and accessibility in this project has been and is a very important part. You will see and find out that the new product that is to be ready and finished by the end of this year will bring a lot of progress. And then what we also found is that with all the educational mediation offers, a democracy workshop, this aspect of accessibility is center stage. I think many of you are involved also in external consultancy, and I think we've reached a very good stage that the presentation in the visitor centers will be fully accessible and barrier-free. And I'd like to invite you right now, when we move to the new building, back into the Parliament building, that you come and have a look. What I'd also like to pick up on what was said by Mr. Essl in the beginning, when we select projects, we should always give an eye to whether it's practically implementable. And this is something I'd like to endorse. With all the enthusiasm about the subject, we, of course, when it comes to construction, the website, visitor center, visitor management, we are confronted and have been confronted with ideas where we wondered, is that possible? Can it be done? So I'm delighted that this aspect of feasibility is part and parcel of your considerations. And also, I like this new way of thinking that members of parliament do not only present the projects, but in their final statements, they tell us what is going to happen as a next step and what their contribution will be. So this is something we're seeing in very many walks of life, that the parliamentary activities can be gate openers. And I am delighted that this is something that has been designed this way during this conference. So along these lines, having said this, thank you very much for being here with us today, for actively contributing. And there will be 2 further days at the Vienna International Center, 3 days even. So all the best for that, lots of success, and we'll meet next year here again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Dossi. And I'd like to just join him in thanking everybody. We've come to the end of this event. There will be a possibility for an informal gathering right after the event and to discuss further steps. And at 12:15, I'd like to extend an invitation to you by Mr. Martin Essl. You're kindly invited, together with him and his team, to look at the accessible Corona site at Heldenplatz to learn about the history. So if you want to be there, let's meet there at 12:15 at the entrance, and Martin Essl will accompany you and give you some explanations. And, of course, I also look forward to seeing many of you at the Zero Project conference over the next 2 days, find out about the innovation, see what's happening in the sphere, and in this way we can make a better world and create a world without barriers here in Austria. I now move on to a special anthem we're going to listen to, a version that is being sung or interpreted by people from 18 countries in their respective sign languages. That's a premiere of this interpretation of the anthem. And I think Martin Essel was part and parcel of this recording. So this premiere was done during the World Expo in Dubai. And this is the first viewing or showing here in Austria. Thank you very much for taking part. Let's listen to the anthem, and then we can have some time together.
Education, employment, accessibility, independent living, and political participation, innovative practices, and innovative policies. A network of civil society.
If you see me, take me just the way I am. We could change the world because we understand. If we both are part of the same society, I could be me. Zero barriers, zero walls, zero borders, zero bombs, zero limits. By reaching our aim, zero project, the dignity of man.
Hey, if you give me chances and take me